Love is something you can't choose, it just happens, and you have to surrender to it regardless of the place or the person or the legal implications. Even if that means falling in love with your teacher. Sato is an ordinary young man who, like any teenager, values his personal space. Therefore, one of his favorite places at school is the bathroom, where no one can bother him. However, one day he encounters something he never would have imagined. Upon opening a stall door, he finds his teacher using the men's restroom. Sato gets nervous and tries not to look, but the shock is so great that he stands frozen in front of her. The teacher, calm, claims she doesn't know how it happened since she had locked the door. Sato explains that the lock is broken and won't close. The teacher says she decided to use the men's restroom because they were cleaning the women's. Nevertheless, she scolds him for entering without knocking and tells him she'll let this incident slide this time, partly because it's her fault, but with the condition that he leaves immediately. Sato would be happy to do so, but now the lock on the door won't open. He's trapped with the furious teacher known as Demon Kojima, as she is very strict with her students and delivers severe sermons to those who misbehave. To make matters worse, when she calls parents to discuss issues with their children, she scolds them too. What awaits him in a situation like this? But the teacher doesn't get angry and tells him to stay still because if he continues causing a commotion, she won't be able to endure her needs. Sato is on the verge of a nervous breakdown just as two guys enter the bathroom, and he thinks his salvation has arrived because they can open the door from the outside. However, the teacher silences him, pressing his face against her shirt and explaining that if anyone finds out that a teacher and a student are locked in the bathroom, they'll think the worst. Sato understands what the teacher is saying, but the shocking silence persists because he can't believe what is happening. After some time in silence, the teacher can't hold back her needs any longer and ends up relieving herself right in front of Sato. A week has passed, and Sato can't get that image out of his head, but he tries not to think about the teacher anymore. On that day, he decides to go to the school infirmary to skip class, but when he enters, he finds the teacher there with a severe cold. Weakened by the illness, she asks Sato to hand her the medicine, but the only one available is applied in an unconventional way. Despite the awkwardness of the moment, the teacher tells him to do it because her cold is only getting worse. However, while they are in the process of administering the medicine in an uncomfortable position, another teacher walks in. To avoid misunderstandings, Sato has to hide under the sheets next to the demon teacher. Once they are alone, the demon thanks him affectionately for what he did, but apologizes because she'll probably infect him with the cold. Indeed, the next day, Sato falls ill. While he's in the infirmary, the teacher comes to visit him, and again, she apologizes for infecting him. This attitude makes Sato change the way he sees the teacher, but seconds later, she harshly scolds him because she knows he lied about twisting his ankle the day before to skip class. Sato is on his way home from school when a strong storm prevents him from continuing in the rain. To take shelter, he decides to enter the first place he finds, which happens to be a laundromat. He is surprised to see that the teacher Kojima is also a victim of the storm and has taken refuge there. Sato notices that Kojima is soaked and asks her why she doesn't take advantage of the dryers in the place to dry her clothes and be able to go home. Kojima points out that it's the only clothing she has, so if she does that, she'll be left with nothing. Sato offers to give her his shirt while she dries hers. Kojima thanks him and changes. However, the storm worsens and a lightning strike causes a power outage in the laundromat, making it impossible to continue drying the clothes. They decide to look for the switch to turn the lights back on. Kojima climbs on Sato's shoulders to reach the switch, which is almost on the ceiling, but another lightning strike sounds, and Kojima, who is terrified of lightning, begins to wobble and ends up pouring laundry detergent all over herself. Seeing that they can't continue this way, Sato tries to climb on Kojima's shoulders, but his male anatomy exposes him. Kojima gets angry, and they have to find another way to solve the problem. Another day, Sato heads to his mother's house to find the surprise that Kojima is there babysitting a girl. Sato asks his teacher what she's doing there, and she explains that she's an acquaintance of his mother and that his mother helped her a lot in the past. To return the favor, she offered to take care of the child. While chatting, Kojima tells him that she's not good with kids and that her family pressures her to get married, which she finds challenging, although she has low standards. All she wants is someone young who cares about others and likes children. She literally describes Sato, so both of them blush embarrassedly and clarify that it won't happen. Later, the girl wants to use the swimming pool, and Kojima gets into the pool with her while Sato plays with the girl from outside. At one point, the girl falls into the pool, and both Sato and Kojima rush to save her from hitting the ground. They manage to pick her up at the same time before she touches the ground, but due to the momentum and the speed of both, they accidentally kiss. Both remain blushing for a long time. That night, Sato's mother makes a joke about Kojima Kojima marrying her son, and although Kojima dismisses it, she can't help but think about the kiss they shared. Another day, Sato goes up to his room, expecting to find his beloved otaku bunker full of manga and video games. Instead, upon entering, he realizes that Kojima is sitting there. The first thing she says is that he should be more organized because all his clothes are scattered on the floor. Sato can't believe that during his vacation, he continues to encounter Kojima in the most unexpected places, even in his room. Kojima explains that Sato's mother called her and told her to wait there. At that moment, Sato's mother enters the room with drinks and food to share. She then explains that they are there to celebrate Kojima moving to her new house. After this, she gives a glass of liquor to the teacher, and with a single sip, she starts to get drunk. Later, Kojima comments that during the move, she found a photo album in which she is a student alongside Sato's mother and a young Sato. She remembers that as a young person, she was so shy that she couldn't talk to anyone, so she was afraid she would never be a teacher. However, in a situation she had with Sato, they talked, and he made her realize that she would be a great teacher, so she holds him dear. Although she doesn't know that the child was Sato. That's why when Sato's mother tells her who he is, Kojima hugs him and tells him that she owes him a lot. Sato's mother tells them both that she would like them to get married and for Kojima to be her daughter-in-law, but Sato is uncomfortable with that idea. Kojima is incredibly drunk, so she agrees to do new things with Sato. She asks him to call her miss instead of teacher when they are outside of school. Sato's mother leaves them alone to do their own things, and Kojima starts insisting that Sato kisses her, but he refuses, especially because she's drunk. Eventually, she kisses him, and then she falls asleep due to the alcohol. The next day, they cross paths at school, and Sato calls her miss in front of all the students, which is disrespectful to address a teacher. Kojima scolds him in front of everyone, and Sato thinks she has forgotten everything that happened the night before due to the alcohol. Alone, Kojima blushes because she likes that he called her miss, but it should only be outside of school. Some friends of Sato's mother invite her and her family to celebrate a wedding on a tropical beach. Sato is surprised when they arrive, and he finds Kojima playing with his sister. When he asks his mother why she is there, she explains that since the father couldn't go with them due to work, she took the opportunity to invite Kojima. She continues to insist that soon Kojima will be part of the family when the two of them get married. Sato doesn't understand why his mother is so insistent on that, and tired of his slowness, his mother explains that Kojima has demonstrated on too many occasions that she likes him. Sato can't believe that the teacher likes him, although he does have feelings for her, but he doesn't think it's possible. Although he has noticed that someone as cold as her has shown affection for him on several occasions. His mother leaves them alone to confess their feelings, and Sato is too embarrassed to look Kojima in the face after what his mother said. Despite this, they both go to a secluded spot to jump into the river, and Kojima asks Sato to put sunscreen on her back. While doing so, Sato continues to mull over the idea that Kojima likes him, and at one point accidentally vocalizes one of his thoughts, wondering if Kojima likes him. She, as distracted as he is, responds affirmatively. Embarrassed upon realizing what just happened, Kojima jumps into the river, but then she feels something biting her and decides to get out of the river. When she tells Sato about it, they both notice a sign warning of venomous snakes in the river. Both go into crisis, and Sato decides he will suck the venom from her body to prevent anything terrible from happening until he notices where the bite was. Although he thinks about it for a moment, he decides it's a life or death situation and ends up sucking out the venom. Finally, the wedding arrives, and Sato tells Kojima that once he graduates, they should return to that place, alone. Initially, Kojima blushes, but then scolds him for not waiting for the right moment to say that. On the way back, Kojima talks to another schoolteacher, Mayu, and tells her that she had a wonderful time on the tropical island. Then she receives a call from Sato, and they chat happily on the phone. The other teacher looks at her with nostalgia because she has feelings for another student, Suzuki, Sato's friend, but she doesn't even have his phone number. Sato tells Suzuki that a few days before he started dating Professor Kojima, which creates a big surprise in his friend, who can't believe that someone would date the demon, much less his friend. The worst part of all this is that from that day on, Sato will no longer eat with Suzuki, but now he will eat with the teacher. This saddens the boy terribly, who because of his hard face cannot make friends because everyone is afraid of him. Teacher Mayu observes Suzuki eating alone and decides that she must seize her moment, so she approaches him to propose that they have lunch together. Suzuki asks her if she is not afraid of him like everyone else, and Mayu replies that no teacher should be afraid of her students, which causes the boy to get excited. That said, the two begin to share their respective lunches, and Mayu learns that Suzuki really likes to cook. However, the wonderful lunch is interrupted because Mayu falls into the water fountain they are leaning on and gets soaked. Suzuki decides to help her not without a couple of inconveniences in between, and given the embarrassment, they decide to finish lunch there. But before leaving, Suzuki offers Mayu her sweater so she can have dry clothes since all her clothes got wet in the fountain. Later, in the locker room, Kojima notices that Mayu has Suzuki's sweater and asks her if she has feelings for him. She does not deny, stating that teachers should never get involved with their students, but Kojima manages to tell from how she talks about Suzuki that she is in love with him. At that moment, Mayu realizes that in the sweater is Suzuki's train pass and decides that she will return it to him so that he has a way to get home. However, she ends up taking the train with him and they travel together. The situation is somewhat awkward because there are too many people and they are cramped together. In a sudden movement of the train, Mayu's blouse comes off, and with no other option so that she is not left without clothes in front of all the people, Suzuki decides to help her as best he can, although he does not observe well what happens and ends up buttoning the blouse in a disastrous way. When getting off the train, a security guard sees Mayu's disheveled clothes and asks if Suzuki is doing something wrong with them. Mayu takes that moment to say that they are a couple and not to get in trouble with the policeman, but Suzuki doesn't want to make her teacher uncomfortable and decides that she shouldn't lie about something as serious as that. Even though Suzuki meant well, those words strike a chord in Mayu's heart, who realizes that Suzuki only sees her as her teacher and nothing more than that. Suzuki finds himself at a fast food restaurant ordering Happy Meals, and everyone around him distances themselves, terrified by his intimidating appearance. He feels uncomfortable that this happens every time he goes somewhere. However, he hears a woman next to him also ordering a Happy Meal. When he turns around, he realizes it's Mayu. With their orders in hand, they leave the place chatting. Suzuki mentions that he's buying Happy Meals for his younger siblings, and Mayu reveals she's also getting some for her high school sister. They notice a storm approaching rapidly. At that moment, Suzuki's younger brothers appear. They saw he forgot the umbrella and decided to bring it to him. With the umbrella in hand, Suzuki offers to accompany Mayu home while they all shield themselves from the rain. She happily agrees. On the way, the kids open their Happy Meals, and the little girl becomes sad because she didn't get the toy she wanted. Mayu offers her sister's toy, explaining that her sister finds the toys too childish and never wants them. The girl thanks her and tosses the toy to exchange it, but it accidentally goes under Mayu's shirt, creating a very uncomfortable situation, although she tries to play it off. After a while, feeling too uncomfortable, she decides to go back home alone. Another night, Mayu and Kojima meet at a bar to drink, and both end up drunk. Then Sato shows up to pick up Kojima and take her home, avoiding further problems and ensuring she doesn't walk intoxicated on the street. Mayu becomes sad because she would also like someone to help her with just a message. She remembers the day she met Suzuki. She had to take an exam to become a teacher, but traffic made her late. Desperate because punctuality is essential for the exam, she decided to run to the high school, but on the way, her shoe broke and she dropped the papers she was holding. Thinking it couldn't get any worse, she burst into tears just as Suzuki appeared in front of her. Knowing what had happened, he decided to help her and ran her to the high school on his back, making her arrive even earlier than expected. Since that day, and because of his loving demeanor, Mayu fell in love with Suzuki. In the present, Mayu opens her eyes to realize she is on Suzuki's back. He explains that Sato sent him a message to pick her up because she was very drunk. This makes Mayu fall even more in love with him, and she sincerely thanks him for helping her. Preparations for the Kawanuma festival are underway at the school. There, Suzuki, Mayu and the student treasurer meet with students and teachers of the school to discuss the important issues of the organization. At that time they meet the student Taka and his teacher Hikari. Taka seems to be a responsible student and focused on preparations, while Hikari has a strange energy and treats him almost as if he were her brother. Anyway, Taka heads to his room telling himself that even if he is alone and that he must make it perfect. However, his thoughts are soon interrupted when he enters his room and finds that his bed is occupied by Hikari. Taka asks her what she is doing there, and the teacher assures him that her house's heating was damaged so it is too cold, so she decided to sleep in that room. Taka tries to tell her no, but she has already gone to bed and pulls him by the hand so they can sleep together. Despite being his teacher, Hikari has known Taka since they were little. They grew up together because their parents worked together and Hikari was always in charge of taking care of him. That's why there is such a great trust. Back to our story, Taka tries to get out of Hikari's arms, but being a gym teacher she is very strong, and after a few seconds she falls asleep, so Taka is trapped between her body and her arms. As she falls asleep, Hikari stops exerting so much force on Taka and he manages to free himself, but then he sees that Hikari's skin is uncovered and he can't let anyone see that. However, when he goes back to help her, she grabs him again and an extremely awkward situation arises, in which he touches parts he shouldn't have. Despite being an accident, it is the first thing Hikari sees when she wakes up, and although she acts calmly, telling him that he looks like a baby for doing that, as she leaves the room she is left thinking about what happened. For his part, Taka is distressed to see that Hikari still considers him a child despite being in high school. Another day, Hikane forces Taka to accompany her to buy clothes, but not just any clothes, underwear. Now that he is an adult, he can help her with that. Taka is completely embarrassed and wants to leave, but she won't let him. To get it over with quickly, Taka takes a set of clothes with her eyes closed and hands it to him. The outfit is very revealing and embarrassing to Hikari, and by an accident, Taka ends up leading Hikari out of the fitting room with just the underwear and her jacket. After the awkward moment, they both head for cold drinks, leaving the situation in the past and no hard feelings. From school, a class of students, which includes Taka, takes a long walk in the forest. Despite being a nice activity, Taka is uncomfortable because after what happened, he cannot look Hikari in the eyes out of embarrassment. At one point, Hikari makes a joke and Taka, in surprise, falls into a river. Hikari tries to save him, but in the attempt also falls with him, and suddenly it starts to rain and they must take shelter in a kind of cave in the forest. There, Taka begins to feel very cold until he almost reaches hypothermia and seems to start to get delirious. Hikari wants to help him, but due to the hypothermia delirium, some awkward situations happen between the friends. After a while, Taka has warmed up, calmed down and sleeps peacefully. When he wakes up, he realizes that he is on Hikari's lap and that she has been taking care of him that time, just as she did when they were children. Then he realizes that since they were children he has had feelings for her, and without any scruples he confesses to Hikari that he likes her, which leaves the teacher speechless. The days go by and finally the school festival begins. Suzuki thought he would spend the day alone, as usual, but by his side is Mayu, who has dressed as a student to go unnoticed. Seeing her like that, Hikari teases Mayu and assures her that if she did all that for the boy, it's because she clearly has feelings for him, although Mayu denies it. Then, Hikari tells them about a game she is promoting called Cops and Robbers, and before explaining what it is about, she cuffs Mayu's hands and takes her and Suzuki into a room so they can be alone. While looking for the key to the handcuffs, Mayu asks Suzuki if he had heard the conversation she had with Hikari, and he states that he had not, to leave her alone, although he heard perfectly well how Hikari said that Mayu had feelings for him. Some strange situations are generated as they try to open the handcuffs, and Suzuki ends up apologizing to Mayu for constantly causing trouble for her. But Mayu, remembering the words he said to her that first time, assures him that nothing he does causes her any discomfort or trouble. Taken by the moment, Mayu confesses that she likes him, and when she realizes what has happened, she runs away without explanation. Suzuki is stunned because he can't believe it would happen, and he feels guilty about going beyond the student-teacher relationship, although when he looks around him and sees Taka and Sato's relationships, he begins to think that it wouldn't be so terrible. One of the festival events involves visiting the old institution building at night, a totally creepy place. To make sure there's no trouble, they send Taka and the treasurer to guard the place, and Hikari gets jealous when she sees Taka pretending to be brave when she knows he's not. So she decides that she will hide in the building before they enter and scare them off. But she doesn't even make it 30 steps. Some floorboards break underneath her and she is trapped. So, when the two students are checking the place, they find her trapped, with half her body under the floor. The treasurer goes to look for someone to help them, and Taka wants to accompany her, but then the floor breaks underneath him and he falls completely underground. He takes advantage of being there to try to help Hikari by pushing her legs up. But Hikari has drunk so much water in the last few hours that with that movement she cannot resist and must go to the bathroom. Embarrassed, she tells Taka about the situation and he looks for a bucket for her to relieve herself. At that moment the treasurer appears along with Suzuki and they manage to get Hikari out of the predicament without anyone knowing what happened. But Taka, instead of waiting for her, leaves with the students, and Hikari thinks she has crossed the line by watching her relieve herself, and now they can't talk anymore. Taka, in fact, is so embarrassed about what happened that he cannot look Hikari in the face. The next day, the treasurer tells Mayu and Taka that a person dressed as a bear is hanging around and bothering the couples. Despite the bear's bad intention, these pranks he plays on them always manage to reconcile them, and it is also said that if the bear bothers you, your declaration of love will come out perfectly. Hearing this, Mayu goes to look for him to propose to Suzuki, but he is nowhere to be found. Seeing a huge foot, she thinks it is the bear's disguise and runs to hug him, asking him to help her with her declaration to Suzuki. However, when she lifts her head, she realizes that she has run into Suzuki. She is about to die of embarrassment when Suzuki states that he is a student with no money and no foresight for the future. Worse, that if she agrees, they can in the future get married. On the other hand, Taka has discovered that the bear is Hikari. Hikari goes into hiding, as now everyone is looking for her to get lucky in the couple. Taka finds her, and after some mishaps because of her brusque ways of communicating, he ends up confessing to Hikari that he is in love with her. For her part, Hikari, blushing, affirms that she is also in love with him and that Taka is only his property. Tanaka works as a waiter at a restaurant frequented by our protagonists. While talking to them, they mention that all three of them are dating teachers from the school. Tanaka confidently states that he will get a girlfriend when he graduates in 3 months so they can go on double dates. However, it's not that simple, as he works with all men and hardly talks to anyone at school. His mind is so preoccupied with this that he accidentally bumps into the school nurse, Takenaba, spilling coffee on her. Takenaba is known for being cold and distant with students, and at this moment, she doesn't deviate much from that reputation. While Tanaka looks for a spare shirt for her, she stoically states that she would prefer to be drinking coffee than hearing apologies. Tanaka hands her the shirt, and Takenaba removes her own shirt in front of him while putting on the new one. Nervous, Takenaba tries to move away to avoid looking, but she slips and falls onto the nurse. Despite the discomfort of the moment, Takenaba's serious face remains unchanged. However, even though she tries not to show anything, her body can't feign as well as she does, and she ends up embarrassed, pushing Tanaka off her. Later, she tries to treat Tanaka's bruise from the fall, but he runs away. The next day, Takenaba talks to Hikari for advice on how to be kinder to students. When asked if she has someone in mind, Takenaba can only think of Tanaka. On Christmas Day, Tanaka is celebrating alone as his parents are away. However, upon entering the dining room, he finds Takenaba dressed in Christmas attire and holding a video recorder. The nurse explains that she wants to get to know him better and wants him to know her. She shares some childhood stories and confesses that she always spends Christmas alone, wanting to share it with him this year. Accidentally spilling Christmas drink on her clothes, Tanaka lends her his own. Before leaving, Takenaba gives Tanaka a gift, and he retrieves one he had saved in case he went out with someone. He decides to give it to her to avoid being empty-handed. Upon opening it, Takenaba sees a teddy bear that reminds her of her childhood. She thanks Tanaka, and for the first time, he sees her smile. After the Christmas party, Tanaka and Takenaba start growing closer. One day, the nurse asks Tanaka for help with some shopping, and he gladly assists. Takenaba feels she should reward him in some way, so they agree that she will buy a lottery ticket, and if they win, they'll split the prize. Takenaba buys the ticket and wins 2 tickets for a stay on an island. They decide to travel together. Tanaka can't believe he's in this situation, but it brings him some joy along with a sense of discomfort. On the island, they head to the sea, but things get a bit complicated, so they decide to postpone it. Takenaba checks something in her suitcase, and Tanaka realizes that she searched for fun things for him so he wouldn't be bored. As Tanaka notices her sweet gestures, his heart starts racing. Over the days on the island and sharing activities with her, he realizes he has fallen deeply in love. On the last day, they plan a night hike in a forest to stargaze, but their plans are ruined by heavy rain, forcing them to take shelter in a cave. After spending some time there, Takenaba, feeling sad, says she wanted to show him the stars, but now it's impossible. Tanaka reassures her, saying that the intention is what truly matters. As he finishes saying that, the sky clears, and a moonlight glow enters the cave, illuminating sparkling stalactites, creating a romantic atmosphere. Unable to hold back, Tanaka accidentally confesses that he's in love with her. Takenaba covers his eyes and tells him that she can't be seen like that at the moment. It's Valentine's Day, and women are giving chocolates to their significant others. Tanaka watches his classmates receive homemade chocolate boxes and hopes throughout the day to receive something. He even stays a few hours after school with the hope that it will happen, but to his disappointment, it doesn't. Disheartened, he decides to go home empty-handed. However, as he exits, a heavy snowstorm forces him to stay at school until it subsides and bus services resume. He realizes that Takenaba is in the same situation, and both are snow-soaked. They decide to wait in the school until the storm ends, and Takeneba gives him a chocolate she prepared. Tanaka decides that he must take advantage of this moment to confess in a better way. He believes that if he doesn't do it before graduation, he won't have another chance. Takeneba hears the confession but tells him she can't accept it, without explaining why. In the chocolate box, there is a letter that explains she can only do it after Tanaka graduates, but he doesn't read it. Finally, graduation day arrives, marking the end of Tanaka's school journey. On the same day, all our protagonists gather, and while the men plan a trip, the women cook for everyone. In the kitchen, Takeneba gets dirty with food, and Tanaka takes her to the room to give her new clothes to change into. Taking advantage of the moment, Takeneba confesses her love to him, explaining that she couldn't do it before because she was his teacher and nurse. Now that he has graduated, they can be together. Tanaka explodes with joy. They both return to the group, and everyone continues planning a trip with all the couples, including the newly formed one. And so, the anime that has stirred so many emotions comes to an end. If you enjoyed this series, let me know in the comments. Until next time.